Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul. Yeah. Somebody pray to me, Jesus, somebody touch my soul.
Life too sweet, I can't complain. The only constant is the change, and we go touch the road again. So as long as you call my name, then I will answer. I'm a happy camper, and love is my sponsor. Oh, and as long as I'm man of life, then I will dance up. No time for no anger, I'm smiling with me hands up. Yeah.
Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul.
Yeah.
Somebody pray to me, Jesus, somebody touch my soul. All right, Diego Martin, all right. I'll tell you what, right? Meet me in the Savannah next year. Thank you very much, Diego Martin. And as usual, we welcome all our visitors into the West. I would like particularly to welcome, not for the first, and certainly won't be the last, our Deputy Political Leader from San Fernando, Mrs. Joan Yule Williams. Other party officers, all my cabinet colleagues, I'm pleased to see you out in your numbers here tonight, members of the Senate, members of the councils. I see the chairman of the Diego Martin Corporation is here, ensuring that he is a gracious host. And of course, I see our MP from all the way from the eastern end of the country, the Member of Parliament for Toko Sangrandi. This only happens when the PNM gets together, and all voluntary, all voluntary. And I also see our newest minister, Member of Parliament, the Senator in the Ministry of Agriculture, Minister Nigel De Freitas is here with us. And of course, if I may identify the hard-working minister who is dealing with foreign affairs, the Minister of Patience, is he? So, fellow citizens who are listening wherever you are, and those of you following us abroad, welcome to this PNM informational gathering. I'm here tonight to support my two colleagues who have given a good account of themselves and an account of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, running a country is not easy. Running this country is not easy. But we didn't sign up for an easy job. We signed up to deal with whatever the situation is. What Minister Imbert mentioned there about the state of affairs, it didn't come to us as any great surprise. It is because of that situation why a government that had 29 seats, we had 12. And when the election was called, they were put out of office and we were handed the job. We were handed the tiller of this ship, the great ship Trinidad and Tobago, and we had to take it out to sea against the currents, against the wind, because we couldn't allow our country to run on the rocks. So if you hear them talking about what a wonderful time, they're now talking about the golden age of the UNC. Could you imagine that? 29 seats, the first call the population have, they ask you to get out. And they're now hoping that the population forgets. But tonight is not a night to talk about them. That will come. Tonight is a night to talk about us, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You see, they have a habit. Everybody knows Monday morning is very slow for the news media. So they call a press conference on Sunday, talk some foolishness, tell some lie, and feed the media that for Monday. That is the flavor of the first few days of the week. And then they're on again Monday night, where nobody in this country has been able to ask the opposition leader a question for her to answer it for the last how many years? When was the last time the media in this country was able to ask the opposition leader a question and expect an answer from her? She hides behind a screen and makes the most ridiculous statements on an ongoing basis, hoping to poison the atmosphere in Trinidad and Tobago. But to do that, you have to prime yourself with something. The very latest, and I don't want to spend much of my time tonight on that because I didn't come here for that. That time will come. But I must respond as chairman of the National Security Council of Trinidad and Tobago, a democratic nation in the Commonwealth of Nations, governing our country under law. I tonight must respond to Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, a former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, now the leader of the opposition, who paints up her face, puts on her nighty clothes, goes behind a screen and tells the world that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, which I lead, is spying on the entire population. She has identified, she has named the security services, she received it, she said, and she went on to name virtually every category of persons in Trinidad and Tobago claiming that you are being spied upon by the government. So all of a sudden, Trinidad and Tobago is North Korea. And why will she do that? And not for the first time, and I want to remind Trinidad and Tobago, that was the opposition version of it. There was a prime ministerial version of that. When she came into office in 2010, one of the first things she did was to destroy the security system of this country by alleging that she was being spied upon. She instructed them to bring the files to her home. And the end result of that is that 20 of our best trained intelligence officers were fired. Brigadier Joseph was in charge of the SIA at the time. He was fired summarily. She spoke publicly in the airport and accused him of personally spying on her. Because she had information, she fired him. You, the taxpayers, had to pay millions of dollars for that. And the 20 officers who they fired, you had to pay for that too. The bottom line is, it was all a lie. Lie. But it's sensational. And the media loves it because the media does not question them and ask them, where is the iota of evidence to support those widespread allegations? You go on and tell the judiciary that my government spying on the judiciary, on magistrates. Pray tell, what would the government be spying on magistrates to find out? Tell me. Magistrates, taxi drivers, oh, and Faris, they know the greatest defender of Faris. Have you noticed that? Faris. They're so upset that I am spying on Faris. I could tell you something though, because the population might want to know what fit of madness has caused this. There's a danger in this country at the moment. I could tell you all something else too. As Prime Minister, like Basdio Pandey was, like Patrick Manning was, like Eric Williams was, there are things that will come to you in the course of your duty as leader of a country that you will have to keep to yourself for the rest of your life. That goes with the territory. In the United States, there's a law called an Official Secrets Act, where if you breach it, you can go to some serious jail. Most countries have that. We don't have that here, but most countries have it. Because a state, in protecting what is in effect the state, you require on an ongoing basis to be concerned about the security of the state. So you have machinery, personnel, and equipment to equip the state to know what is happening to the state, what is threatening the state, so you could defend the state. Today's technological age, where you could do all kinds of things. Before I came down here, I was at my computer working just about half an hour before I ran away to come down here. My little grandson came with his iPad, and he's taking a picture of me and he's hiding behind his iPad. And when I looked up and I grabbed him to see what he was doing, there was a picture of me that he took and converted me into some strange character on his iPad. If you see this thing, I said, and tells me, I'm going to post this. I said, you'll do no such thing. He's 7 years old. Every criminal in this country is an expert with a cell phone. Every bandit in the prison, law or no law, is in contact with some lawyer outside. And Mrs. Prasad Bisesa knows these difficulties, and because she was a prime minister, I was in my office in Diego Martin. She called me, and she have a way of calling people on their first name like you and she's friend, eh? Foster, you the latest. Foster, everything Foster. She calls me in my office. Keith, I want to come to they're coming to assassinate me. I said, what are you talking about? You remember that story? She called me in my office in a panic to tell me that, and sent officer. I said, well, I have to get that from the police because you don't sound corpus mentis. You know. She sent Officer Richardson to come and tell me that. And when I asked him, so who is behind this? He told me Muslims. That was going on in this country, you know. That was going on in this country. This is the country where you wake up one morning and you hear, Baka take over the country, you remember that? This is the country where you woke up one morning and you heard the army has mutinied and they're on the way to Port of Spain. Captain Bluman, one ship changed this country's history. You remember those stories? And today in this technological world, if the government has bought equipment for the SSA to be able to know what the gang leaders and the criminals are doing in this country because they do it on the phone, the best tool for the criminals in this country, anywhere in the world for that matter, is that cell phone system. So Ms. Prasad Bisesa wants us to stay out of that. Leave it for the gang leaders. Leave it for the prisoners. We come to the parliament to pass a law to make it illegal for you to be communicating with prisoners in the prison. They wouldn't support it. I could tell you, because Mr. Hines knows and I know, a significant number of the murders in this country are hits called from inside the prison. You clean the prison up one evening, by next morning, it's full of cell phones again. Come on, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa knows that. So why does she come here and try to tell the country that if the SSA has the equipment to be able to be on the ball like every other country, in being able to have information to protect the state, why would she come and lie to the country and say it is the government doing that to spy on everybody? What the hell are you doing that you're afraid that the government would know? If you are a legal, law-abiding citizen, you don't have that paranoia. Only the criminals have that concern. And I'm not surprised that she is so upset, because she is leading a handful of criminals around this country who the police looking for, and she don't want to know, and she don't want them to have any capacity. And I could tell you who was behind that, but not tonight. Let me go to talk to you about what I could talk to you about. As I told you earlier on, I came here to talk to you about the country's business. And I told you we came into office to solve problems. There are a few days of festivities like Carnival, and I welcome the Tobago Carnival, and I hope that, I'm not saying the last time I say come to Tobago, they say I create all kind of problems. But I'm saying, welcome to Tobago Carnival to the calendar. And of course, most things that the government has to do are problems. Problems to be solved by governmental action. There are very few actions that the government will take in this country that will find favor with everybody. We love our West Indies cricket. Pick a team. And then you know all of a sudden, wrong batsman, wrong bowler, wrong captain, wrong coach. That's how it is. We came in to solve problems. And let me just run through some of the problems that we have engaged. I picked 25. Let me just run through them for you, so that you will know what has been engaging your government. We came in and we met a huge problem at Apr22, threatening to bankrupt the country, get us downgraded, and do all kind of problems to us. Not that it started with us, you know. It's been going on for a long time. Company was without a proper future, aiming to lose billions of dollars, have to write off billions in debt. Everything that was bad about it, that had to be dealt with. This government of yours dealt with the Apr22 problem. We made $2.7 billion available to 5,000 workers to go home with. Even casual workers were on the list to get financial support. We created 2 companies that have been successful so far. Heritage and Paria, doing very well. They are profitable. We dealt with that. It didn't please everybody. It will never, because some people live by talking about Apr22, 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 Apr22. They live by doing that. And every now and then they take a breath, they call a march. That is number one. We are currently engaged in trying to deal with lake asphalt. Because I don't know if you know that lake asphalt, the pitch lake, it has a body of workers, it's a state company, but it is funded by the Ministry of Finance. They had $200 million in the bank. But if you keep spending it going out and nothing coming in, what happens? And of course, one of the problems in this country right now is potholes. You know why all these potholes around the country? There's a period of time from Tobago to wherever, you can't get bitumen to pave the roads. Can't get it. Not being produced here. Can't be imported because of the business model. We are dealing with that. The cabinet has put lake asphalt in the Ministry of Works and has put a committee in place with NIDCO acting as the operating agency to create a new business model for lake asphalt to make it sustainable, to make it profitable, to make it a contributor from the lake and from otherwise. What was happening before is that lake asphalt was being supported by selling bitumen from Apr22. So once the refinery was closed down, all of a sudden, the lake asphalt company had no revenue stream. And of course, to pay the workers, the Ministry of Finance has to provide every 3 months or so a certain amount of millions of dollars. How long can that go on for? We're going to fix that. And we're going to create something sustainable in the La Brea area for the La Brea people, for the country of Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to fix that. Those of you from San Fernando, how many decades have you heard about the San Fernando waterfront project? I invite all of you in San Fernando, around San Fernando and Tobago, go down to San Fernando and see the waterfront project under construction. San Fernando is being rebuilt from the sea inwards. Underway. The Point Fortin Highway, where they remove the contract document clause the day before the election to allow the contractor to go away with $921 million. And when she jumps out every Monday night or every Sunday to talk foolishness, the one thing Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has never engaged in this country is to account for $921 million that her government allowed the contractor to go away with. Her way of dealing with that is just not to mention it at all. But of course, she has time to ball. Is Imbert first? Is Stewart? Is Faris? Is Guaido? Is Police Service Commission? Is AV Oil? Is Rowley Apartment? Is Alan Warner? But not a word about the $921 million that somebody removed a clause in her government contract to allow a bankrupt contractor to go away with $921 million. And they're busy out there now handing out jersey and trying to form new political alliance and so on. I want to say to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, tonight, if they succeed in what they are engaged in now, when they get you again, they're going to do it to you again. That's all I could tell you. Because the Ethiopian does not change his skin, nor the leopard his spots. All they want is another opportunity. We told you we are going to upgrade the road to Toko from Sandy Grande. Go out there now, it's underway. Construction of 3 or 4 contracts out there, the road is being upgraded. It's happening. There was one time when we were promising it. When it was coming, it is happening now. The upgrade of the road to Toko. Traffic in Chaguanas, you can't go east, west, north, and south. We started on a ring road project to take traffic around Chaguanas. One piece has been completed. There's more to be done. We are on the road there. We are on the project. It is happening. Trying to leave Kirep to go south. You couldn't cross the highway. The Kirep overpass is in place. You don't even think about it anymore. You drive below it and you pass. Oh man, that was being built for $540 million. We built it for $219 million. And you need to ask yourself, where was that extra $300 million going? It's there. And we are in the process now of moving on to the next overpass further up at Makoya, because we committed to build the overpasses until we get to the airport where you can drive from Port of Spain to the airport without stopping at any traffic light. We are doing it bit by bit, increment by increment. That's how we're doing it. And of course, they spent 2 years talking about the Tobago ferry. After they run the ferries down to the bottom of the ocean, we couldn't insure them, we couldn't repair them. They themselves, who did that? For 2 years they were talking about the ferry, 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 the ferry. Well, we said we will solve the problem. We told you so. We rented boats, we leased ferries, and in the end, we bought our own ferries. And today, Tobago and Trinidad, between us, we have 2 of the most modern ferries in the world. The APT James and the Buko Reef, that ferry story has been solved. We now have capacity on Easter coming up here of almost 2,000 persons per trip of each boat. And those boats can go back and forth if we choose to. That problem has been solved. It costs $1 billion because it costs $500 million a piece. But we found the funding and we bought them. While you're looking for the funding, those who were complaining about the state of the ferries between our islands, they wrote to the government of Australia, the opposition in Australia, tried to get them to prevent the loan. They wrote to the Attorney General, attempting to accuse me and Malcolm Turnbull of corruption in getting Australian funding for those ferries. That is what they are good at. Accusation, accusation, accusation. And the Bible says, he who is without sin, cast the first stone. She carrying a boulder, you know. So that ferry story is dealt with. The people who are now in charge of Tobago, they have claimed, and I hope that they succeed, that they want a record number of tourist arrivals into Tobago. I think the figure is 18,000 passengers, something like that. Record number of passengers. With the current low number of passengers, the current airport facility that we had there couldn't manage it. We did a two-step arrangement there. First, we upgraded what is there now. Go to Tobago now and you'll find an upgraded facility there now. And while that is going on, we are building a new airport terminal building. How you could want to increase the passenger arrival to the kind of level you're talking about, but you don't have the physical facility to handle them? We are putting the physical facility in place in the expectation that they will succeed. And I could tell you, when we funded CAL during the pandemic, because like other things, we carried CAL, the Minister of Finance carried CAL during the pandemic, you know. They made some adjustments, but they stayed a viable, and the minute the pandemic gave us an ease, our airline was back in the air. But I told CAL's board at the time, the taxpayers, especially the ones from Tobago, they are holding you alive during this pandemic. But we want something out of you. We cannot tolerate any longer that we have a tourism product in Tobago trying to sell it to the world, paying outside airline to bring passengers and empty seats to our Tobago. And our own airline does not fly to Tobago. CAL has been instructed to put in arrangement New York to Tobago non-stop if you have to. The taxpayers want that. And in my dealings with CAL, I am told that within a month they will announce something to that effect, that CAL can be able to fly from New York to Tobago, because CAL is going to St. Lucia, it's going to Barbados, but not going to Tobago. Our own airline not going to Tobago. I could never understand that. So I'm saying to all of you and to all of us, if we have an airline, it must fly to Tobago under some condition that we are going to look out for. And of course, during the period just before the pandemic, we built, this government, this PNM government, last administration, we built 3 hospitals: Arima, Point Fortin, and Roxborough. They're there now, they're there. Remember when the Brian Lara Stadium was said to be Manning's Folly, and it was a bad place, the soil wasn't good, and the grass couldn't grow, and this couldn't happen, and they left it there for 5 years. They teeth out everything that wasn't concrete. The night when we opened the Brian Lara Stadium, they came in their yellow, what do you call it? 90, and tried to block the highway. Thousands of persons who were on their way to that opening couldn't get there because the UNC blocked the highway to create mayhem. And those who got inside from the UNC, they went and stuffed jersey down in the toilet to block it for it to flood. You remember that story? Today, the Brian Lara Stadium is one of the finest functioning cricket facilities in the world. And we hosted the best party in cricket. It's now famous for that, 3 years in a row. They've gone to Guyana now for 3 years, and hopefully they'll come back to Trinidad and Tobago for the finals. This year we're having games in Trinidad, hopefully. Not the finals, but we're going to have probably some games. And the minister is hinting that if she's successful in getting that done, we might even have a game down here in Diego Martin where the most highly acclaimed new venue in cricket, you should have heard the commentary on the Diego Martin Stadium when we hosted the Under-19 World Cup here. But of course, when we were building that, they were in the parliament making noise about corruption and the contractor. They wanted to do what they did down in their constituency, pay the contractor $200 million for 8 concrete blocks to sit on. Walk with your own cushion. Ladies and gentlemen, we solved that. When we came in, we met the parliament. 15 years have scaffolding around it. Moving like Miss Howard chat from place to place with the parliament. We met our legacy buildings on Queen's Park West, the Magnificent 7, falling apart. One group of engineers told us we'll have to pull down Millfleur because Millfleur has gone beyond recall. It was such a heartbreaking piece of advice that I said, we can't take that advice just so. Let's get a second piece of advice from the Cubans. The Cubans came, and I want to thank the Cuban government for getting involved. The Cubans came and they said we could save it. Look at Millfleur tonight. All 7 in tip-top condition to make a nation proud, and President's house to go with it. I could tell you, when I went to President's house as Prime Minister, there were truckloads of garbage inside President's house. Before we could begin working there, we had to remove truckloads of garbage, like the Labas had moved. Today, I could tell you, as a proud nation, we can go to President's house and have national functions, and we can feel like an independent nation, and our President's office is worthy of the title. And from QRC, where the children couldn't go in the hall, because you're walking outside, you see in the outside, you didn't know children couldn't pass through the hall because it was dangerous. Under UDCOT, in my portfolio, I ensure that money was spent, and it was spent on those and not going to contractors' pockets unnecessarily. And every single one was completed properly, and today we have saved our legacy. I can tell you, the famous library in Port of Spain, where Dr. Williams and Basil Matthews had those seminal discourse. It was their trees were growing in the roof. They could make cut timber on top there. It was falling apart. Taxpayers, you have spent the money, UDCOT has done it, the building is repaired, and I'm hoping to be able to have it operational in time for independence as an Eric Williams Memorial Library. And this was something that I had an agreement with the last government for, you know. When we had our anniversary, and I asked, could you not do that? Instead of doing that, went another fete inside Woodford Square. But we are different. Having spent the money on it, we have saved the legacy. We are creating in Port of Spain heritage sites, so when you invite people to come from cruise ships or to come as visitors, you have something to interest and to offer them. We have done that. The Parliament. Our Parliament is finished and functioning. One of the proudest buildings in the nation. The Parliament, they were awarding a contract for God alone knows how many $100 million. We approach it differently. Instead of giving one contractor some $600 or $700 or $800 million to do, we broke it up into 18 or 20 contracts and had contractors compete for every portion. And we brought that in close to the budget. Today, both chambers of the Parliament can function at the same time. And as a citizen, you can be proud to go in there or to see it on television or to just pass along the road and say, this is our Parliament. It is such a fantastic building in use, no more scaffolding, and no contractor would have stolen your money. I can tell you, they talk about crime and criminality. You've got to make the police comfortable where they're operating from. We built police stations in Shervan, two of the finest police stations in the country and Tobago. Shervan and Roxborough. We built Maracas and Joseph, Besson Street, Carenage. So we were building up the infrastructure from which the police will function. And of course, down at Tetuan Stobles Bay, only recently the cabinet has cleared and authorized construction to solve some of the long-standing problems down there, not the least of which is the sewage problem. Do you believe that? A problem with sewage unattended, while a contractor could be allowed to go away with $921 million, and I have to listen to these people giving me advice, you know, and holding themselves out as some savior in Trinidad and Tobago. Oh, the border porous, the border porous. after they shut down the OPVs, take back the money, disappear it, use the helicopter as some party pram, the same border that the Venezuelans are coming through. Porous. That phrase became so hip. Everybody, porous border, porous border, porous border, porous border. We got from the same Australians, using the same funding arrangement, we got built in Australia 2 of the finest offshore patrol vessels that this country needs. They are out there working now. They are out there now. We couldn't buy one because if you buy one, whenever it comes in for maintenance, you have none. But if you have 2, there are times when both could be out, and there are times when one could be in and one could be out. I could tell you, our country is in a much better position now with those vessels because they are built for a particular purpose. They have a 28-day endurance. When they leave port, they can go out there and stay out there for a month without having to come back in. So when they're out there, they can be close to us. They could be as far out as the oil rigs, 60 miles or 70 miles out. They could be Tobago, they could be in the Gulf of, Paria, they could be in the Columbus Channel. And of course, once you have that capability, you have the edge on those who will come into our country, picking and choosing when they want to come. We are in a much better position today. And when we were flooded by Venezuelans leaving their country to come here, what did the government do? For the first time in the history of the country, Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago, for the first time, we put Venezuelans on visas. But if there are people who insist that they're not going to use the visa system to apply to get permission to come in, and they will come into every nook and cranny, we said we register those who are here, and those who are unregistered will repatriate you. Unfortunately, some people still keep coming and risking their lives, and we've had tragedies. Oh Lord, the day that the tragedy, the UNC jumping up and down, I have been accused of killing Venezuelans who drown in their own water. People who unfortunately drown in Venezuelan coastal waters on their way to Trinidad, I'm accused of being responsible for that. And of course, they undermine every single aspect of our foreign policy while they're out of government. The same people who are now advising us on foreign policy as if they know something about it. One of the first things I had to do as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago was to get on a plane and go to Jamaica and eat humble pie and apologize for the conduct of Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bissessa because Jamaicans were about to boycott Trinidad and Tobago's goods. Jamaica is our largest market. When Vincico said that they were going to boycott Trinidad and Tobago products, that would have caused mass unemployment in Trinidad because a lot of those who are employed in manufacturing in Trinidad, they are manufacturing for the Jamaican market. And because of the behavior of that Prime Minister, they annoyed the Jamaicans and we were facing a boycott. Fortunately for Trinidad and Tobago, when I got to Jamaica, a large chunk of the Jamaican cabinet were colleagues of mine from UWI in the days when I was at UWI. From the speaker down were people that I knew on the Central Coast, at the Mona campus. I had to sit there and I took Prakash Ramada with me. That put an end to Hido. Because he came on the trip, right? He came on the trip and he wasn't supposed to do that. So he disappeared. He only appeared recently because somebody drowned. I had to sit there with 14 Jamaican ministers, right? Smoke coming out their ears about Trinidad and Tobago's behavior. And now I have to listen to them telling me about foreign policy. Hurricane in St. Lucia, you tell them, okay, if you all want help, you'll have to buy our goods to get help. That was their foreign policy. And of course, the Americans wanted regime change in Venezuela, and Trinidad and Tobago jump in and get involved. They want President Guaido too. And everything this government does, they're undermining it. We are talking about not going down that road because it makes no sense. Europe giving Venezuela 8 days for the government to leave office. They're going down that road. and appointing President Guaido. Tonight I want to ask the UNC and Mr. Kamala Prasad, Bisesa and Doppy, where is President Guaido? Where? And our media here is so very convenient, but we know the PNM is held to a higher standard. A higher standard. If a PNM opposition had done that, the media would be on our case every Sunday, every commentator, all of them. But you take our country publicly down a road supporting somebody who's not even in the parliament of Venezuela and agreeing with the Americans that they should be on the OAS executive. And you, right in the American embassy, are asking them to sanction Rowley and Stuart Young because we allow the vice president of Venezuela to come to Trinidad. We allowed the vice president to come to Trinidad. So we should be sanctioned by a foreign power. And then the foreign power itself go on to Caracas. And when we said we will speak to the government that the UN acknowledges in Caracas, because we stay with the UN principle and under the UN Charter, they're still undermining us with the President Guaido foolishness. And then when the Americans wanted to talk to Venezuela, who they went to talk to in Venezuela? They sent a delegation to Venezuela to talk to the UNC. And of course, the minute somebody say that Trinidad and Tobago falling apart, oh my Lord, that was music to their ears. Music to their ears. So we've been getting the job done. Tonight you heard from Foster, the latest infatuation of the opposition leader. You heard about youth camps tonight. Not promises of youth camps, you know. He told you what is being done. That Ministry of Youth Development and National Service and the Ministry of Rural Development, they were not accidental ministries. They were there for a purpose, and we are working through them and with them to address these specific problems. One, the local government structure as part of our governance, and the other one, dealing with that body of our citizenry, those young people who need guidance, who need help, who need opportunity, who need to be the best that they could be if they get the right guidance and the right opportunities. That's what we're doing. And that didn't happen. When we got into government, we created those administrative arrangements to focus on them because we have come to solve problems. And then, of course, here's a lot of people with money home in pan, in barrel, cartoon box with camphor. You got up one day, I could tell you tonight, it took us 2 years, and by us I mean 3 people. For 2 years, there were 3 people in this country who knew that the government would do what we did with respect to the demonetizing of the old $100 bills. And when we announced it, it was a surprise because it has to be a surprise. If it was known to Tom, Dick, and Harry, they would have known what to do about it. And I have no doubt that some of them did something about it because I keep hearing about people who were changing money and how much they were changing it for and how much discount they were giving. But at the end of the demonetization, $500 million did not come back into the central bank. It means that you, the taxpayer who was robbed in the beginning by the robbers, you had $500 million to give them if they had come to exchange it. But they couldn't come to exchange it. So the $500 million is now yours. Profit. And you may recall, when we did that, it took 2 years. And when we announced it, they were, oh, you have to print the money, it's done. You have to get, it's done. Call the bank and tell them they're closing tomorrow, Friday. They will get the money on Sunday and the opening on Monday. And when you come on Monday, your clients will have a new $100 bill. It went like clockwork. It was the smoothest and most successful demonetization that we know of anywhere in the world. And it had to happen because we knew what was going on, and we said, by the hook, the crook, or the devil fork stick, that will have to end. Has to end. $500 million couldn't come back into the bank. And they have no shame, you know. They're pretending that that didn't happen. And what they were concerned about is that it's taking place at the worst time, Christmas time, when people are shopping. It was the best time because all these shoppers wanted the new money. Because they're always predicting doom, gloom, and disaster. And so they've been wrong every time. Every time. So, ladies and gentlemen, during this PM period, we have never sent home one gazetted public servant, not one. You heard the Minister of Finance speak about borrowing $16 billion. Some we took out of the heritage, some we borrowed from banks to ensure that we did not use the reduction of people's opportunity. We, in the most difficult of period, we had confidence in Trinidad and Tobago. When everybody say all fall down, we say no, we will rise again. And there's no shame in being down. The disgrace is when you refuse to try to get up. And we had confidence that the time will come under this government in this country where that debt will be manageable and not frightening. You heard tonight from the Minister of Finance that because of the improvement in our economy, our debt to GDP ratio is in fact one that is quite good, and our reserves are still quite good. We had go-to columnists who were telling us since 2015 the answer to our problem that the Minister of Finance mentioned here tonight, including calling me. I was out of the country sometime in May of that year, May of 2016. The Minister of Finance called me to tell me the way things have gone. It's now 8 months we're in office, and what we've been struggling with, it appears as though we will not be able to pay salaries at the end of May of 2016. I want to ask all of you public servants, wherever you are, do you know you got paid at the end of May 2016? Was your money late? Were you not paid? Yeah? And for the entire period that we have been in office, public servants have been paid religiously, regularly, every month. And unlike some of our Caribbean neighbors, for whom the IMF told, first item of business, cut the public service by huge amounts, we said we are not going for any IMF instructions. We will make and take our own medicine, and we have been doing that. You even have some parliamentary colleague of mine. I want to ask the Prime Minister if his government is following IMF prescriptions for Trinidad and Tobago. But I told you we're not following any IMF prescription. Any prescription you see is the Trinidad and Tobago prescription for the Trinidad and Tobago problem. And then last week, I was telling you about one who was screaming about the new AG and his status, screaming at the top of his voice. All of a sudden, screaming to the top of your voice is a physical disability. And accusing me of mocking Wade Mark's screaming disability. Well, I could tell you, I must tell you, if I knew Wade Mark had a disability, I would not touch it. Because the only disability I know that he has is that he comes to Parliament on a regular basis, trying to bust a mark, and most times he's lying, and he's the only speaker in any Commonwealth Parliament who had to appease the Parliament by apologizing for lying to the Parliament as Speaker of the Parliament. That is Wade Mark. Every Sunday night they have something to come with. Imagine, I have 2 professional daughters and a professional wife, and me. Granted, I work for the government, right? And one of the big issues of the UNC that going on and on and on political platform with documents. These are the documents, I find them. You know what documents are? The documents are from the Registrar General's office, public documents, you know. Anybody who was idle or drunk could go there and find it. Because Rowley buy an apartment in Tobago and they purchase an apartment in Tobago. You know what shocked them? It was purchased. It was purchased. You had to be a kind of jackass to be Prime Minister and purchasing an apartment when contractor could build your house for you. A particular contractor built a house when the owner of the house and occupant of the house was asked, how you on nothing chops and no money could build this? He said, I built it from cucumber and pumpkin. Famous pumpkin house in Tobago. The other one was living in a bungalow in Siparia. And all her life, the minute she became Prime Minister, mansion in Philippines, the contractor had to paint off his name off his equipment, and then the day after election, the contractor left this country in a hurry and never set foot back in this country. That contractor has left $170 million in equipment in the court because we took them to court for taxpayers' money that was jumping up in the steel band. Who contractor in this Trinidad and Tobago working for a government will walk away from $170 million in equipment and never set foot back in the country? And while these are the facts of the tenure of Kamla Prasad Bisesa and all those around her, including those from Tobago who now in Trinidad, come. They are hoping that you forget what I'm telling you here. But ladies and gentlemen, these are the facts, F-A-X. These are the lives we've lived. These are the people, they're still there, hoping to come back into government to repeat what they have done. And you are welcome to have them anytime. Anytime you want them, they are available there for you. You could have a government that could do what they have done and pretend that it didn't happen. You know, let me tell a little story. I had a girlfriend. She told me she had a boyfriend. He took her to a fete. And when they got to the fete, he met another girl, and he spent the entire party dancing with that girl and kissing her. When the party was over, he was carrying this girl home. And the girl said to him, how you could do that? He said, oh, do what? He said, how you could bring me here and do what you do that? And he said, me? She said, yeah, I watched you for the whole night kissing this girl and dancing in front of me. The man said, me? She said, and she felt so good when the man said that he didn't do that. So he dropped her home and he left. And after he left, she then said to herself, "By going mad." When the man came back the following morning to visit her, she said, "You see, you don't come back here. You want me to go mad. Because I see you with my own eyes. and you come and tell me you didn't do it, and I feel good when you tell me that, you want me to go mad? Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the UNC crowd think all you're stupid, or they want all you to go mad, because they are trying to tell you what happened in this country did not happen. And unfortunately, very many of you have fallen for that foolishness. I could tell you something. This is year number 7 in my tenure, my second tenure as Prime Minister. Not a minister in my government has ever had anything to do with talking to the police for anything that happened in my government. Not one. Not one. And if tomorrow one of them go and get police business on their back, they're on their own. On their own with that. But I've told every one of them, don't fall in love with office, because any day, like your life, you could lose it. I've also told them, be brave in handling the business of Trinidad and Tobago. There are times when you'll have to take risks that it may not work out. But as long as you could explain it to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and give a good explanation that your intention was right and clean and honorable, the people of this country will stand with you. And I, as your leader, will stand with you and defend you. But if you are dishonest and you give up your integrity to join the others, well then, stay with your new friends. I'm not surprised that some of them are coming together. And we're hearing now that the PNM is in trouble because they're coming together. It's not the PNM in trouble, it's Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago. But I've seen it. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the electorate. We have managed this country, you heard the Minister of Finance tonight, on significantly reduced revenues and reducing revenues. But the best thing that we have been able to do was to hold this country and its economy and its people together through rough weather, through difficult times, hold it together with the confidence that after the storm there will be good weather. And then come COVID. Let me tell you, I brought some notes here, because one of them, who I have sent my lawyer to have a conversation with him, which we'll have in an air-conditioned building somewhere. He, like the rest of the UNC, is carrying this narrative of lies, not one of appreciation. Because one of the problems with this country, all of us, Johnny King, who I taught Calypso as well, sang a Calypso called Appreciation. This country is not good at that. Not good at that. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes even when we know, we don't want to acknowledge that we have got help. We convert that situation into entitlement for which you are being wronged. Let me tell you, this one, who shall remain nameless, go on in front press conference to talk about people starving in this country. And it is their starvation that is driving the criminal anger. Starvation, eh? Hungry man. You're so hungry. Buy the most expensive gun and kill as many people as you can. You can't eat none. Right? Let me tell you what our Ministry of Social Development has been doing over and above what the Minister of Finance talked about there. During fiscal 21, which is the last fiscal year that ended September 30th last year, right? So we could look back now on that year 21, the year of the pandemic raging. 108,716 pensioners under the category Senior Citizens Pension. They got $4,590 million in cash from the government. That was last year alone. During the pandemic, and before, and even now, as we're still in the pandemic, we have not cut a dollar in reduction in any of the social intervention projects, not one. So every pensioner, we're still getting the pension, and the Minister of Finance will tell you the number of people on old age pension has been increasing exponentially. And we do know that we have some fraud in there. But that will be for another day. But on top of that, another 107,275 persons got so far between October and now, half year, $2.469 billion. So for the last 18 months, those who are in the category qualified for old age pension would have got over $7.5 billion in cash. And then, of course, there's another 17,000 people, 17,784 who get public assistance. They might not be, or they're not old enough to get old age pension, but they need help. Almost 18,000 of them. They got $350 million. And another 17,000 in 2022. They're getting help to the tune of $176 million. If you are in a situation where you have an adult who has a disability and therefore cannot go out and fend for him or herself, we have 25,320 of those persons. They last year got $621 million. And so far this year, they got another $281 million. Does that sound to you like a country that is not doing anything or enough for its people who need help? And those are adults, eh? There are also some children who need help because they have disabilities. Disability assistance for minors, giving each one $22,572 a year. That's another $53 million helping those children. And so far for this year, another $33 million going in that direction. And the Minister of Finance has to find all these millions and billions at the end of every month, because the way, if you're late, you will know about it and I will know about it. But then of course, all these hundreds of thousands, there's no voice saying, I am being supported, I am being helped. But you have that one in the parliament who's looking for a conversation to try and propel himself into a seat somewhere, accusing this country of not being caring for those who are least able to look after themselves. Another $11 million in something called general assistance, urgent temporary help, food support grant. 32,080 persons benefited from the food support grant to a tune of $215,865. So far for the year, $106 million going food support. And of course, you have minor house repairs, sanitary plumbing, electrical wiring for those people who are destitute and or almost destitute and can't find the finance to do it. If you qualify, you get that kind of help. But let me come specifically to COVID, because I hear my friends say that when they come back to office in the north, that they are going to have a commission of inquiry, right? They're going to have we fighting to save lives. We fighting to save youth. They want commission of inquiry, right? And let me tell you what they will meet. For persons who are retrenched, terminated, or experience reduced income, the Minister of Finance in the middle of COVID made provision to help them with finances with cash grants. March 2021, exactly 1 year ago, that first tranche of payment for those persons, $347 million. That helped 178,000 people. June 2021, a further 3.4 million went in there. And of course, we didn't only do it through the government. We partnered with faith-based organizations. They provided additional food support aimed at assisting families in providing food to vulnerable families. 81,000 hampers and food vouchers went out to 45,000 families. That's how we kept body and soul in homes together during the COVID. And while that was going on, the government was doing this on your behalf with your money. The opposition was out there attacking left, right, and center. First, COVID is a hoax. Then COVID can be cured by sunlight. The government shouldn't be doing that. And you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be closing this. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't shut down bars. And of course, when the government wasn't taking them on and we were doing what had to be done to save your life, they started to attack the nurses, the doctors. They're in the courthouse. I am told there are about 60 cases that went to the court. They lost every one. But they were trying to distract the government. I mean, they even have a doctor coming on the platform attacking his colleagues. In the end, they started blaming the government for having the same doctors at the beginning as we have in the end, and that was causing the deaths in the hospital, attacking the clinical service, and they want an inquiry. Well, today, I received the report for the inquiry into the blackout, and a few weeks ago, I received the inquiry from the specialist doctors who went into the hospital because the doctors were being accused of being incompetent or uncaring in treating with COVID patients, and saying that that was the cause of the deaths. In a situation where about 5 or 6 million people have died around the world, every single country in the world. In fact, is this weekend? A number of planes are now grounded because airline staff in the UK are so sick with COVID that they can't come out to work the plane. They don't have enough workers to fly the planes. COVID is still carrying on. Yeah? In Bergamo, they had so much people died in that town, they had to bring in the army to help them handle coffins. But in Trinidad and Tobago, the UNC, you all recall when the first person died in this country from COVID? Who made that announcement? It was the opposition leader, the town crier, who violated every protocol with respect to the demise of a patient in a hospital. The family didn't know, but the opposition leader, who have her tentacles all over the place like a ghoul, she knew that somebody had died and indecently went and made an announcement about it as though the government, and they eventually said it was the government that had killed the person. I could tell you there are horses for courses. And this Trinidad and Tobago, you had a horse called Roshan Parashram, cool like cucumber. They couldn't deal with it at all. A better public servant for the occasion we could not have asked for. And the team he had around him, it was your public servants from the Ministry of Health that guided us through the COVID. And for that, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Health should be drawn and quartered. He should be fired, because as far as they're concerned, thieving government money, you shouldn't be fired. But I know they got fired for that. And of course, you could find yourself before the court to answer serious criminal charges, but you are an advisor to them. Understand? And of course, you could get COVID and walk about the whole of Port of Spain with it, and then come on a platform and attack the doctors and the nurses who are risking their lives in the wards to save other people's lives. That's why I had to block him off my phone. I want to hear nothing from you. Ladies and gentlemen, this country has been doing a lot. market boxes from Namdefco, an idea that we started out saying, listen, if we get fresh food to houses, that money will go to the farmers. The farmers will get the benefit of that market, and those who are home will get the benefit of good, healthy, fresh food. Ladies and gentlemen, we gave 41 constituencies, we even involved the MPs. 41 constituencies, $13 million, 24,999 people. There was one MP from Baratara who didn't even know that his constituents were getting hundreds of hampers, come to the parliament to try and score political points. Had to be told, hey, your constituents are being served. Didn't even know that. I could go on and on tonight, but I don't have to, because I know you got the message. What you have in Trinidad and Tobago is a government that is dealing with the problems. We are in the parliament now. You heard today or yesterday or whenever that the opposition leader got her nonsense. And I could tell you it's nonsense, because I'm chairman of the National Security Council. I want to tell you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that spying story is all rubbish, fed into the air of a willing participant coming from you know where. And of course, one of the first things we took to the parliament, given the level of corruption and bold-facedness and brazenness that was taking place during their tenure, we say all of this could not go on without somebody knowing who is doing what. So we're going to put a law in place to encourage people who know that there's wrongdoing to come forward if they're so inclined and be protected by law and tell you what is happening with respect to corruption in this country. Many countries have a whistleblower legislation. Many countries, we don't have it. We go to the parliament and put it there. It goes to committee. They wouldn't take any part in the committee, because as far as they're concerned, we're not supporting that. I am not surprised. You ever heard Turkey voting for Thanksgiving? You ever heard that? So they're not voting for it. But of course, when she wants to come and make mischief, she comes and says, a whistleblower told her. And that was sufficient for her to go and scandalize the country and say the government is spying on all Tom, Dick and Harry and Faris. We, for decades, have been talking about local government reform. We've studied it. We consulted about it. We talked about it. We elected over it. We are at the stage now where a joint select committee report in the parliament has come before the parliament to be passed into law after due consideration. This opposition wants no part of it, because they have taken a position that they will support nothing that the government is doing for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, even if it means trying to save your life in a pandemic. They will not support that. So we have crafted the law to move it along in such a way that it can be passed with our 22 votes. We might have been able to make it a bit stronger here or a little different there, but if you interfere with the Constitution in certain provisions, you will require their vote, and they have said, as you have seen, and they told you up front, we are not supporting it. So we are going to pass local government reform in the way that you, the people, have enabled us to pass it. You have given us 22 votes. We are going to pass it, not offending the Constitution, but advancing the legislation with a simple majority. And for those of you who hear them talking about they're going to court because we didn't use a special majority, hogwash. Because the law that we are going to pass is not offending certain aspects of the Constitution, a special majority is not required. It is only required if you have in the law certain provisions that interfere with certain entrenched fundamental rights in the Constitution. And since they are not going to support it, we went back and adjusted the law to put only enough that our votes could pass. If you had given us enough votes, like you gave them, she had 29 seats in the parliament, you get up in this room and tell me what they did. Except raid the treasury, enrich themselves and their friends. You tell me what they did during that period. They didn't maintain the ferries. They didn't pay for the offshore vehicles. They didn't buy motorbikes for the police. They didn't build the police station. They tell you to build schools, 100 schools. They awarded 100 contracts. That's what they did. And when we came in, we met contractors with claims. I'll tell you about one claim. In a state company, a contractor certified claims $53 million. We dug our heels in, so we're not paying that. The judge will have to make us pay that. They settled for $5 million. 53 million, they settled for 5. That should tell you all you need to know. And if you had only voted for them in 2015, Curep Interchange would have been built for $300 million more. And you would have been none the wiser, except that you would say, that is what happens in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank God that is not happening in Trinidad and Tobago. In advancing our local government, we got the Diego Martin Corporation came to the government with a resolution saying that they want borough status. We've heard you, and it is going to happen. It wasn't only Diego Martin, Siparia did the same thing too. Well, they're busy now trying to undo the vote that Siparia made to have borough status. We went to Siparia during our local government election and told the people of Siparia that the next 2 communities that would be elevated to borough in this country was Siparia and Diego Martin. And we are proceeding. We are proceeding. Because we are not going to be sidetracked or distracted by those people who have questions to answer for their stewardship. You will have to deal with that, not us. We in government, we have to deal with the problems that affect you and are there standing in your way. But in terms of who will be the government of Trinidad and Tobago, you will have to decide that, and we will cross that bridge when we come to it. We're not on that bridge now, and we're not crossing any bridge now. We are fixing the problems of this country, and you're better off for that. You're better off for that. You see, when they told us that they had settled the CLICO problem, and all was well and fine, when we came into office, this Minister of Finance found that there was $15 billion still outside there. And the CLICO principals were saying that the government must come off the board, and they're not signing the IOU, and la 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 la, encouraged by certain people who are voices in this country. Well, I led my government to the court. I don't have courthouse closed, but I send people with courthouse closed. And we told them, if you don't cooperate with the government for taxpayers' money that you have in your asset base, we will put you into bankruptcy. We went to the court, and in 15 minutes, a receiver was appointed. And the taxpayers got back billions of dollars from those who otherwise would have been in control and owning it. And if you hear them talk, you figure they're talking for you, they were talking for themselves. But today, the Minister of Finance has created the National Investment Fund. There are almost 800 citizens who have bonds in that fund. The bonds have been bought, backed by $800 million in assets. 8,000 people are the shareholders. When, if it was left to them alone, it would have been a little private clique, and they would have escaped the debt that they owe to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. What more do we have to do to tell you that we are operating in your interests? Eh? Here are the kind of numbers I'm talking about, you know. $15 billion billion that we have saved from going in the wrong direction or into the wrong pocket. $8 billion backing the NIF, where we have already collected $4 billion in cash, which we were never going to get our hand on if we were left to them. And you think that they're easy? I said that the contracts that we were using for the companies to pay us for the gas that they were taking out of our country, they have contracts, sacred contracts. The phrase is sanctity of contracts. But I said, as this country's #1 salesman, I want to talk to those who are doing that. And I went to the boardrooms of the oil companies and raised with them how uneven the yoke was, where only their shareholders were benefiting, and they were using mechanisms unknown to us to get more than their fair share. And some of them agreed. And without interfering with the contracts, they repaid to Trinidad and Tobago $2.7 billion in cash. I tell you this so you could know how you got paid, public servants. How we were able to buy medicine for the hospital, and you know what happens if one drug is missing. You know, the health system collapse. As a matter of fact, it's collapse. Throughout the pandemic, you hear about the health system collapse, it collapsed. I could tell you, our health system was resilient, our staff was professional, the government was on the job, and we came through a pandemic, and thank God we are all alive, far by the few who have died, and we are saddened that we've lost almost 4,000 people, but in a pandemic, the vast majority of people in this country followed the government's guidance, and we took our ship to shore. They don't want to hear that. Earthquake in this country, powerful earthquake. I was scared that the central block would have collapsed in the Port of Spain General Hospital. That building was condemned in 2009. 5 years of UNC, they did not fix a crack in the building. We have set about to build a new central block in the Port of Spain General Hospital, our main hospital in our capital city. There are some difficulties there now with the contractor, and we are trying to solve those difficulties, but the contract is underway. That's what we have done. As I speak to you now, the Ministry of Health head office in Queen's Park East has reached the top floor. In a matter of months, that building would be finished, and for the first time in Port of Spain, the Ministry of Health will have its own building and not renting from anybody, and we would have done that during our pandemic. You see, and it's not only big things we've done, you know, it's the whole spectrum. Go see the people of Laventille in their pool. Go see the people of Morva in their pool. Go see the people of Maloney in their pool. And of course, I tell you all of this because another night, I will tell you how we have reduced the personnel cost. But tonight I could tell you, we did all of this with a cabinet with 23 people. The last government had 33 ministers. Just saving dollars and cents alone, 10 ministers less. Somebody didn't vote a penny. Right? But they were there. But we were in fact reducing the cost of operation. And the phrase that we followed to the T is doing more with less. And following the commandments as laid down by our Maker, thou shalt not steal. So ladies and gentlemen, our country is resilient. Our country is strong. Our country is a place to be proud of. And we love this country. And that is why we'll always say, great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Somebody touch me, somebody touch me, somebody touch my soul.